Thank you. The City Council has been working towards viable solutions to ensure the city remains incorporated should the city be unable to secure additional and sufficient insurance beginning January 1, 2013. One option available to the city was to look at annexation into surrounding cities such as the City of Auburn. After consultations between city elected from the cities of Auburn and Pacific, it was determined that it would be advantageous to both cities if Auburn were to annex all of the territory within the corporate limits of the City of Pacific. The City of Auburn has expressed a desire that the City of Pacific remain its own city. However, they are committed to coordinate and cooperate with respect to any financial, planning, property ownership, transportation, or development issues that would affect the cities and the annexation process. On December 3, 2012, the City Council held a special meeting for the sole purpose of discussing a resolution calling for the de-annexation of the City of Pacific into the City of Auburn. Public testimony was held and the matter was continued to December 10th this evening for continued discussion on cost to the citizens should Auburn annex the City of Pacific. The recommendation is the Council can either adopt the resolution for de-annexation into the City of Auburn or vote it down.
Council's pleasure. Move to adopt resolution 1217, consenting to the annexation of the territory of the City of Pacific, Washington, into the City of Auburn, simultaneous with the de-annexation of the City of Pacific. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Councilmember Putnam.
I've said before, this is not Plan A, this is not Plan Z, but it's better than Plan Z, which is to go on as a failed city without insurance. This is one option. It's only one option. We're still hoping to be able to get insurance. If the insurance does not pan out, there are other possibilities for maintaining services. If those don't pan out, then we have to deal with what you do with an uninsured city. A city where employees can't come to work without fear of losing their homes over the action of the city. A city where elected officials have to worry about losing their homes over the votes of council. If you don't have a council, you can't pay checks. If you don't have employees, you can't clean the streets. We have to look at something that will keep services running for the citizens. This has come up fairly late compared to some of the other options that we're looking at, because when incorporation into Auburn first came up, we were first notified about the insurance back in July, as I recall. They had to give us 180 days notice, and that's when it first made headlines. We had a big turnout for meetings on it. We looked at the standard process for annexation, and it was assumed that we would not be able to do that on the timelines available. We had to go through a boundary review board. It would be a long, complex process. It came up fairly late in the game that the RCW would allow this simply by resolution between the two cities. That's much faster than anyone had expected it to be doable, and that's what made it one viable alternative. It's not what we want. I don't think there's anybody in the Pacific that wants this to happen, probably. But it would be irresponsible of us to sit here and act as if we're sure we're going to get insurance and we're sure we're going to be able to run a city come January, come February, come March. Because if we do not have insurance and the city grinds to a halt around us, what are we going to do then when it's too late for something like this?
Councilmember Guyer.
So as Councilmember Putnam stated, this is one way for us to have a viable option for the citizens of Pacific. As an elected official, it's our duty to protect the citizens and provide services to the citizens of Pacific. We're still actively seeking insurance, and I feel optimistic. My cup might be running over a little bit too, but I honestly believe we're going to be able to stay intact as a city. I want to believe it really bad. Only wanted to bring this option forward. There's timelines that need to be met for the action, for things to start happening, and I would feel really bad if we went to disincorporation and there were no services for the City of Pacific. There were no council, there was no services, period. There was no police presence. I live in a neighborhood, there was a lot of kids that live in my neighborhood, and I want to know that they're all safe. I want to know that my neighbors are safe. We have the elderly provide those services. And that was why it became a viable option to look at this with the City of Auburn. Not very happy about the taxes. I have to pay those too. That's not a realistic option for me, but it's better than this incorporation. It's better than having no services. And the one thing I do know that the City of Auburn will take care of our seniors. You know, the senior center will not shut down. They will keep it going. I was told they will look at our employees that work for the city right now. There's going to be some openings. They'll be able to take some. They can't take them all. You know, it's just where we're at. I think we would be derelict of duty if we did not bring these options available and try to seek out every viable option to the citizens of the City of Pacific. We heard you loud and clear. We know you don't want it. We don't want it. This incorporation puts us at very high risk. You know, it makes it very risky here in this city. So it's not an option. But on the other hand, I think of that disincorporation, it gives us a chance to get our city back. I see that. I hear that. And so it's really tough. It's really tough to sit here as a council member and try to make that decision. And all I can think of is what is the best thing for the most people in this city. How do we take care of the citizens of Pacific? Because that's our job as elected officials.
Councilmember Specail.
Well, there's no way that I can feel comfortable voting for this. I went to grade school here in this complex. I remember we had a one-car garage where the doors would fall off or an old broken-down fire engine in it. We had one part-time cop that lived on Homer Avenue. If you needed him, you run down and knock on the door and he'd wake up. And I don't think we have, now what I've heard today and everything else, I think just off the wall all afternoon, I think that we need to take a run at the governor. And everybody in the city, email her office, however you do get a hold of her office, and just everybody in the city reach out, and the governor would have to recognize somebody's requests, I think.
Councilmember Halsey.
Tough times pass, tough people persevere. I've never run from a difficult situation in my life. I'm not going to start now. I don't see that annexation into Auburn will provide us the service that near the level we have now, so we're going to lose a lot of services, and your tax is going to increase about 70%. So I will also be voting no on this.
Any other comments?
I guess I have questions, and I don't know if Councilmember Geyer or Ken are best to answer. Is this resolution tonight, is this push the button and off she goes?
No.
What options do we have? So what happens if we don't do this tonight? And if we do it tonight, what options do we have to stop it?
We are able to pull back from it. As a matter of fact, I'm sorry. We are able to pull back from it, but I would like to hear comments from the audience, but I also would like to postpone our vote to continue the meeting until the 17th, when we've had an opportunity to hear maybe an answer from another insurance company. Hold out for that last bit of hope. I would like to hear comments from the citizens, since they're here to have that opportunity, but I would like to request that we continue the meeting until the 17th before we vote on this, so that we've exhausted all opportunities of insurance before council has to make this decision.
Yeah, and that's why I asked the question. I mean, I don't want to, if there's any hope at all, I don't want to.
And that's how I feel. I mean, we could pull back from it. We could vote on it, pass it, and on the 17th, take it back. But what I'd rather do, because the 17th is a workshop, is just continue the meeting until the 17th, not close this one, and open the meeting up with this discussion.
So what's the procedure to pull that back? Because as I read that statute, it takes an ordinance making an offer, an ordinance making an exception, or a resolution accepting it, and then it goes to boundary review board and subject to a petition by the property owner. I didn't read anything in there about the ability to take it back, and we ask Auburn not to accept it until the 31st. What's the mechanism for that?
There is a 45-day period after which, during which time the citizens can raise their objections. And it's my understanding that we can pass the resolution, and we wanted to trigger the 45 days because that's going to take us into nearly February.
Right.
And it was my understanding that we can withdraw that petition or resolution prior to the time that the 45 days expires.
Even if Auburn has accepted?
Even if Auburn has accepted.
Okay.
My recommendation, I would join with Councilman Guyer in indicating it would be the best course of action for this city at this time, this matter would be continued till the 17th.
Okay.
And if I could make it very clear, in my meetings with Mayor Lewis or conversations, he wants the city to remain intact as a city. He's just reaching out a lifeline to the citizens of the city. He really doesn't want us.
So I've heard some discussion, but I've also heard some comments about continuation. Is there a motion for that? I don't, but I don't find this top of the map. You guys brought up, so we're going to separate it.
It becomes effective.
Public comment on the annexation to Auburn. Might as well line up.
Bernadine Harrison again.
Come on.